Welcome to the Sloan Sports Analytics Conference Hackathon presented by ESPN in partnership with the NHL. I'm James Hogan. I'm a first-year MBA student here at MIT Sloan, and I'm really excited to present you with our finalists who will be presenting their insights from a data set provided by the NHL and ESPN here shortly. With us, we have an amazing panel of judges. We have Megan Chayka, co-founder and CEO of Stathletes. We have Allison Locks, Director of Business Development and Innovation at ESPN. And we'll be joined shortly by Brant Berglund, Senior Director of Coaching and GM Applications at the NHL, along with Keith Horseman, the Vice President of Technology at the NHL. So just to give you guys a little bit of background, the applications, we had over 50 applications to participate in the hackathon this year. We had 25 competitors that came to the Heinz Center on Thursday, hacked away all day, and that resulted in 5 finalists, ranging from undergrad students to professionals in the field. Today, we'll be presenting for about an hour. The judges will then deliberate and present the winners of the open and student division. So I'd now like to introduce you to Matt Morris from ESPN, who's really been the lead on the hackathon side from the ESPN perspective, to talk a little bit about the data set and the competition thus far.
All right, thanks, James. Here we go. So nice to meet everybody. Matt Morris from ESPN, Sports Analytics, and we've had a blast with this hackathon. We had the hackathon on Thursday. The actual hacking took place on Thursday. It started Thursday morning. We were fortunate enough to have the NHL provide some really cool puck and player tracking data tagged. So this is sort of the first time some of this data has gotten out there and people have been able to play with it. So hopefully the hackers enjoyed themselves. I certainly did, watching some of them. And yeah, I look forward to seeing what happens the rest of today. So this should be fun. There are judges. There will be a winner at the end. There's actually 2 divisions. There's an open division and a student division. The open division consists of professionals, the students. Hey, students. So this should be, like I said, a good time, and hopefully we're going to get some good presentations. All the hackers are going to come up here. There are some groups of 2 and some individuals. They're going to come in and plug in their laptops, and they're going to talk for roughly 5 to 10 minutes total. There's going to be a couple minutes of questions by the judges after each presentation, and then we'll move on to the next hacker. And then we'll have a winner from each division at the end. The judges will deliberate. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to let the hackers do their thing. This is going to be a lot of fun. So let's get started. They're going to introduce themselves, tell you where they're from, so I will not do that, but here we go.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you very much. I'd like to first start by thanking ESPN, the NHL, all the MIT folks. It really was a perfectly well-run event. I loved it. I had a lot of fun. I think everyone else did as well, and I'm excited to present to you today. So I'm David Bergman. Those of you that play daily fantasy sports might know me as the Whistles Go Woo. I'm the 2020 Daily Fantasy Football World Champion. I actually had an ESPN article with Michael Clay at the beginning of this season. So anyway, that's how I'm known on the internet, at least in the DFS circle. I'm also a professor at the University of Connecticut, and I also do a little bit of consulting through Optimized Operations LLC. I worked with Daniel Brown, who is a buddy of mine and who is a graduate student at the University of Colorado Boulder. So let's dive right in. My goal for this hackathon was to try to use the data, which was really good, to try to find something that is interesting, insightful, and might be useful to teams. And that's pretty hard in a 6-hour time frame, but still we tried our best. So the question was, should defenders be more aggressive? And so we defined a new metric, DD, which is the average distance of both defenders on a shooting team from the goalie. Let me show you a couple diagrams just to exhibit what a DD is. So in this case, I would call a DD around 70, which is the number of feet from the goalies to the goalie line, from the defenders to the goalie line. The red players here are the defenders, and so 70 would be the average distance of the defenders. If we look here, you have a DD of around 50, which is the average distance of the defenders. So you would think of the bottom one as being a more aggressive situation, and the top one as being a little bit more of a passive situation or a conservative situation. So the question we wanted to ask was kind of twofold, right? So first question, is there a relationship between DD and scoring, right? So you would think the more aggressive you are, the more you're going to score. And the second question, which was the thing that we were really interested in, is there a relationship between DD and counterattack shots, right? You would think closer defenders are, the more aggressive, the more chance that the other team, should you not be successful in shooting, has an opportunity for a counterattack shot and hence a goal. So those were the two questions. Incoming hypothesis, of course, is that the question to one is that as the DD goes down, you're more aggressive, you're going to be scoring more. And then conventional wisdom would say for question two that the more aggressive you are, i.e. the lower the DD, the more counterattack shots. So that's what we thought was going to happen, and we were going to try to figure out where's the sweet spot and where's the balance. Then the interesting thing has come in, right? So here was the kind of obvious conventional wisdom kind of lined up with what you would think intuitively, right? So the more your DD is, again, that means more conservative, then you have a less chance of scoring. I don't think anyone would contend with this. This makes sense. It's intuitive and aligns with what you might in incoming think. What was super interesting is that we saw that when you were more conservative, i.e. you helped the defenders back a bit, it actually led to more counterattacks. And there's lots of things we might hypothesize as to why that is the case, right? Maybe it just opens up the field for the defensive team at the time so that they can make quick moves out. Maybe it's because it just enables the defenders to stop any movement because they're just closer to the action. I don't know why, right? And of course, that's a question that can be answered with more time and more data. But it is at least an interesting trend and something I think we should look into. So again, the conventional wisdom of being more conservative might not actually be accomplishing that goal. And so, yeah, there's lots of things you can do in future work. Testing with more data is obviously something helpful. We were given an initial data set on a game from like 1994 with the Hartford Whalers. I live in Hartford, so that was pretty cool. But anyway, and there actually I saw a little bit of a different trend, but it's only one game, right? So we can't really deduce enough yet. But understanding the situations and having more data and doing more analysis is definitely helpful. The data was really good. It was really, really good and super nuanced and very detailed. In the NBA, they have a couple of different metrics that they use to kind of analyze situations, and it's a very similar kind of structure because you have people moving around fluidly, right? So they have the convex hull area of the defense and the convex hull area of the offense. What that is imagine the players on a team as pings on the ground. You take a big rubber band, you wrap it around them, and let it go. That's what the convex hull is. It's a very known structure in computational geometry and mathematical optimization. But anyway, they use these metrics to kind of understand the situations and the relative positions and the style of play of the teammates on the floor. And they use that for various things. And I think, you know, given the data we have, you could measure this at every single second throughout the entire game and see what that does to the outcomes that are happening. So, yeah, there's lots of different things I can imagine doing here. Conclusions that I have is be aggressive, okay? Conventional wisdom, again, I mean, this is a pretty standard or very well-known hockey analytics book. They have an entire chapter about how defenders should stay back. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying, this author knows more about hockey than I do. That's no question. But at least in this one particular data set, for this one particular series, it was a 6-game series, we do see kind of an opposite trend than what conventional wisdom might tell you. I didn't really take into account power plays, okay? What happens when you have when you are on a power play or when you're defending? I don't know the impact of that. Should be something interesting to do. Another thing that everyone should always keep in mind is that all models are wrong, but some are useful. There were some assumptions in the analysis I had to do. Well, 6 hours, you can't do much, but even if I had eternity, I would have to build in some assumptions. And I'm not saying that the measure of the probability that I have is exactly right, but what I am saying is that there might be something here. And with that, I thank you. I can put my bio on, but let me take some questions from the judges if they have any.
I've got two. What was the difference? You said that initial data set had a different trend. What was the trend?
Yeah, so there was a minor increase in the counterattacks when the DD was lower. So being a little bit more aggressive, as you might define the defender's position, did lead a little bit. But I mean, it's one data set, so I'm not 100% sure. Yeah.
And did you look at the difference in spread? So in terms of not just their DD, but their DD relationship to the forwards?
I love that idea, and I think that's exactly what this convex hull stuff can give you. right? Because that is really the like if you look at the area of like the blue there or the area of the red, that'll really tell you like how condensed are you. And this data set is absolutely amenable to that and something that should be looked into. Great question.
I have two as well. Since you mentioned at the beginning your goal was to try to find something that would be usable for coaches, the question, and Megan and I spoke about this the other day, is how do you define a defender? Is it literally their roster position?
Okay, great question. I wanted to do that, but I ran out of time, so I just picked the furthest two people as the defenders. So this is, I know I call them defenders. Most of the time they will be, of course. But yeah, and, you know, there's different people with different mindsets on the ice at all time. Also, I mean, looking at the line itself, right, the first line, they could be completely different, right? So, yeah, it was actually defined here, and I had a little bullet. But anyway, as the furthest two people, yeah.
I think that's actually more accurate, so I'm glad you did it that way.
Lucky.
Tampa's very aggressive with their defensemen on wraparounds and things like that, so typically it's not just the defensemen that are back at the blue line, so that's great. And then you mentioned not using power plays, so did you filter out power plays, and were you just looking at even strength, or was that all data lumped in together?
I did not. All the data lumped together, and I did look up the number of shots on like record compared to the number of shots that I read from the data, and they were really, really close. I mean, not perfect, but relatively close. So I didn't filter out power plays, but I did do some sanity checks to make sure it was okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
Think we're all set?
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you to ESPN, the NHL, and MIT for having us here today, and the judges for believing in us on Thursday. My name's Trevor Sermon. I'm a master's student in Ohio University's Sports Administration program.
Hi, everyone. My name is Quinn Robnett, and I am a sophomore at Syracuse University in the Sport Analytics program. So on Thursday, we were tasked with we were given a data set. It was on the 2020 Stanley Cup Finals between the Dallas Stars and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and we were just given general, you can do whatever you want with the data. So originally, we didn't know what we were going to do, so we just did a quick Google search on the series, found a quick summary, and we found some really interesting information that we could, you know, use going forward. So we found that the series was relatively determined by the power play. So as you can see up there, Tampa scored 7 of their 18 goals on the power play, whereas Dallas only had 1 goal, and Dallas had much more power play time than Tampa. So we decided that we were going to look at how traffic affected the power play. So when we define traffic, we're looking at specifically what we call the traffic cone. This is not your standard orange traffic cone, but rather it's defined as the triangle formed between the puck and the 2 ends of the crease. And then we use that to find how many players are in that traffic cone. And then from that, we were looking at how this affected shots getting through to the net or around the net versus shots blocked.
Yeah, so now we're going to take you through some of our initial findings and then show you some visualizations to explain how our findings might be used in practice. So as you can see here, on every shot that Dallas blocked, they had exactly 1 player in the cone, but on shots that went through, there was an average of just 0.44 players in the cone. So what this shows us is that it wasn't that Dallas was getting in position to block shots and prevent them from getting to the net. It was that they had no one there to do the blocking. Some other tidbits, on all goals that we studied, there were an equal or greater amount of lightning in the cone than stars. Of course, the counter of that is that every time the Stars had more players in the cone than the Lightning failed to score. And when a Dallas defender was in the cone, they managed to block nearly half, 47% of the shots. So obviously, just by putting someone in the cone, they reduced the number of chances to score by nearly 50%. From the offensive perspective, on only 26% of shots blocked, there was a Lightning player in the cone versus, when there was no attacker in the cone, only 26% of shots were blocked, but 31% of shots were blocked when there was an attacker in the cone. Similarly, there was an average of 0.43 Lightning players in the cone when a shot was blocked versus 0.39 when the shot was not blocked. So, of course, we'd have to do more research on this, but we think that this might be showing that when a Lightning player is moving into the cone, he might be dragging his defender with him, which might allow for a greater chance of a block.
So to demonstrate some of these ideas, I put together some examples. So this is an example from Game 6. Tampa's on the power play. And as you can see here, this is an example of a blocked shot. So what's happening here is that the Tampa defender gets the puck, and he's moving to his right. And then there's a Tampa player kind of in the middle there, which is drawing the defenders towards him. As you can see, the defenders kind of collapse around him. And that leads to the shot being blocked and a relatively simple clear for Dallas on that play.
On the contrary, here we have a shot that made it through to the goalie. And as you can see, Tampa's spacing allows for the shooter to have a clean entry cone towards the goal.
And one more fun example. This one's from Game 4. If you remember Game 4, if you watch Game 4, Tampa won that one in overtime. And you can kind of see the celebration there at the end, and also the dejection from the Stars as they slowly skate off the ice. But you can see as the play unfolds that the player on the right here, he gets the puck, he has an open lane, and there's really no one in the cone to stop him. There is one Tampa player kind of near the goal. Yeah, he's in position to maybe get a tip on it, but he's not in the cone, so he's not drawing defenders into the cone as well.
Yeah, so of course, we would have liked to have more time to build this model out further, but some ideas that we had for further research was, of course, comparative statistics. We would have liked to see what the Stars had done differently and why they were so much less successful on the power play. Further studies could include studying if it is truly the effect of attacker movement into the cone that's drawing these defenders in. Of course, once we conducted more analysis, we need to conduct proper testing to make sure that our results were statistically significant. And we think that down the road, if ESPN or NHL wants to run with this, it could lead to a prescriptive model, both for the attacking and the defensive side. On the attacking side, to optimize spacing between players so that they can get a clean shot to the net. And on the defensive side, making sure that you always have someone in range to get a body in front and prevent the puck from getting to the goal. So with that, we thank you for having us again and open up the floor to any questions.
Did you notice anything on, like, when is there too many people in the cone? So there's too many trees to get the puck through.
Yeah, in our data set, we only had, I think, 3 instances where there were more than 2 players total. And that was only Dallas never had 2 players in the cone. It was always Tampa on 3 instances, and one of them they scored a goal. So that would be something to dive into further in the future.
The one thing about a power play is obviously they can have more time and space to set up. Did you look at even strength at all and compare some of your results or how many people were in the cone to an even strength situation?
We did not for time purposes. That would be something interesting to look at going forward, but strictly for this, the hackathon, we specifically looked at the Tampa power play.
I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
All right. Oh, showing up there. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Charlie Logan. I am currently a basketball research intern with the Phoenix Suns while I'm finishing my last semester at the University of Michigan studying data science. So for some background on the project, as hockey fans will know, hockey is a game of possessions, particularly advantageous possessions. And one way to create those advantageous possessions is to carry the puck into the zone or pass the puck into the zone rather than dump it down and try to rely on your forecheck in order to get it back, as you see Nathan McKinnon doing there. This is building on Eric Tulsky's 2011 Sloan paper on controlled entries, where he found that teams that controlled the puck into the zone took about 2 times as many shots on average as teams that entered via an uncontrolled entry. So controlling to the zone kind of can create an odd man rush or just kind of allow you to set up some offensive structure, but it obviously comes with the trade-off that a more risky entry could lead to a turnover at the blue line and create an even more advantageous opportunity at the other end for your opponent. Lastly, the early research in this area was really limited by hand track data. It was all done by people that watched several games and kind of took note of what the entry was on a given play and how that play ended up. So the influx of tracking data kind of allows us to scale this up and take a bigger look at this. So the overall goal was to explore the relationship between the game situation and a team's decision to carry the puck into the zone or dump it in. So the data, as you've heard, comes from 6 games from the 2020 Stanley Cup Finals. The data I use, the first source, tracks the live location of all the skaters and the puck and sends it at a rate of once per second. And so I match that up with an automatically tagged data set of which team has possession at the time, as well as which skater has possession if someone does seem to have possession. And so I found 777 occurrences throughout the series of a team with possession crossing over from the neutral zone into their offensive end. And yeah, this is one such example from game 1. So to explore this relationship, I tagged any instance in which an individual was tagged as having possession when the puck crosses the blue line as a controlled entry, and then any instance when only a team was tagged as having possession but no indication of any player having possession as an uncontrolled entry. And to explore this relationship, I used logistic regression to take a look at the score differential of the attacking team at the time, so that if the team with the puck is down by 2 goals, they're a -2 going into that attack, as well as whether the attacking team was on the power play. The results of this regression show that score difference was not a statistically significant predictor of whether the team decided to carry the puck into the zone or not, while very unsurprisingly, power play was a strong predictor of a team's decision to possess the puck in, as and we can interpret that coefficient as, you know, a team being on a power play, we would expect a 75% increase in the chance that they're going to possess the puck into the zone rather than dump it in, as you're almost never going to find an example of a power play, a team dumping it in. So, as with any hackathon, I think there are a lot of improvements and further ways to take this with more time, more data. But I think, and I don't think we can definitively say that there isn't a relationship between the game state and a team's decision to get more or less aggressive. But I do think it's worth considering that perhaps teams can adopt a higher risk, higher reward, kind of more aggressive behavior when they're down big. And I would kind of compare this, I'm more familiar with basketball, you know, a team deciding to start fouling or taking more 3-pointers as the game is starting to trend toward them not being able to catch the other team playing kind of the normal back and forth game. So further work, I think incorporating win probability in place of the score differential at the time, just so that there's kind of a factor of how much time is left in the game. So if a team is given like a 5% chance, do they start really going more aggressive with their zone entries? As well as just kind of a more complete risk-reward analysis of, you know, what kind of chances are being created by carrying the puck into the zone
versus how often are they turning it over on those, and what kind of chances is that creating on the other end. Finally, I think this method of using the tagged possessions as a proxy served this analysis, but I don't think it's necessarily accurate enough to make any definitive conclusions. And I think it'd be interesting to take a look at using that hand track data to train a classifier based on the puck shape, like you see there, of entry into the zone, and based on that shape, see if we can find any patterns of like dumping it into the zone versus carrying it in. And lastly, as it's always fun to put faces to data, these were the leaders throughout the series. You can read these as these were the last players to touch the puck before it entered the zone. And I can take any questions.
Awesome. Did you also look at locations in terms of where these controlled entries are?
I did not. That would definitely, I think that's where using the pucks, like trying to use its shape to deduce whether it was entered or not, especially like you could consider the players in the area. But yeah, I think that would be a more accurate way.
Was there a difference between the two teams in their controlled entries in the series?
Well, that's a good question. I also didn't take a look at that. I think you can see the Stars seem to have 3 people on the board here up at the top. But other than that, not sure.
So this board here is intriguing. Would you ever think about using the players as a feature?
Yeah, I think I was kind of surprised to see this, having 3 defenders up there. I think that's why it's not a perfect measure of, this isn't exactly them individually carrying it over. I think it being the last person to touch the puck kind of indicates that there's a good amount of passes in this. But yeah, I think considering who would have the puck in a more complex model would be beneficial.
Did you use the possession events in the data, or did you derive them yourself?
I used the possession events in the data. Yeah, I matched up like the closest possible time right before when that location was sent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, I'm Fabrice Malumba. I'm a software engineer at Coalfire Systems. We're competing in the Open Division.
I'm Daniel Lee. I'm a Bayesian statistician.
And we're going to present our Sloan goalie card. So problem with hockey discourse and sports discourse in general is that it's too result driven. People will see what happened, but they don't care so much about how we got there. In the NBA, you'll see someone's points per game, but they don't care if they were a high volume shooter that's being very inefficient. In a football game, they'll see the final result, but instead of caring about how well the defense performed, they'll care about, is this QB a winning QB? And so in hockey, it's a low-scoring game. If you say game's 4-3, does that mean only 7 important things happened? Like, no, of course not. So we believe that the solution is a more process-driven evaluation of all competitors in any sport. And in this case, we're going to focus on the goalies in the 2020 Stanley Cup Finals.
The specific question we were trying to answer was, does goaltender depth matter? And in this sense, you could either be playing in the defensive depth, conservative, base, or aggressive. And why do we look at this? The first thing that came to mind was that NHL goalie data is not public. So this is new work that couldn't have been done from open data. I think fans have a sense whether or not their goalie is more or less conservative, but it's hard to quantify without data. And the final question we'd want to ask is, does the depth of play change shot percentage? What we did with this was we actually modeled shot percentage with goalie depth as a factor. This was a model written in STAN, a Bayesian logistic regression. And without getting into the math, the important things to note here is that we use depth as one of the covariates. The distance of the shot, the depth of the goalie, a percentage, how relatively close the goalie is to the shot, and an interaction term between the depth and the distance itself. And what does this tell us? The first thing to note is that there is a difference in goalies. You can see that from these two heat maps. Going up along this axis is a shot distance in feet, so further away the shot is taken. From left to right is the goalie depth in feet. And the first thing you can see is that Andrei Vasilevsky, he tends to be better when he's playing more conservatively. And we could also do a comparison across the two goalies, where Anton Khudobin, when he's playing defensively, allows a higher shot percentage. And the next questions we can ask about this are, how do we improve the model? We originally wanted to do a finer grain outcome model, but we didn't have time. And obvious question, should either goalie play differently based on this information?
So one thing that we really believe in is that information isn't enough. I mean, it's nice to have, of course, but being informed without applying it is like not as useful. And so we decided to make an application as well. So we like the idea of, traditionally, you know, every player had like a sports card when they were younger. So nowadays people can have like an online card. And we think this adds so much more discourse to any sport. So as you can see, between both goalies, we'll have a different distribution between their depth and output. We have a by game for each player on our app. As you can see, we have the shooter, shot location, shot distance, shot outcome, goalie position, goalie depth, and game time of that specific instance, of course. And so we believe that with all these features available, if we want to, we can fine grain this and refine this app. And we have this, as you can see, we have a lot of this screen real estate where we want to have a lot more of our outputs and potential outputs going forward. And so we think that this adds a lot more discourse to any conversation, especially because by nature, on a power play, the goalie's at a fundamental disadvantage. So if they're having comparable performance, but six more of those goals were coming from power plays, who's really performing better? I mean, of course, Tampa Bay Lightning won, so that's the conversation that's going to be had as in everything they did right. But we think that there needs to be more head-to-head, position-by-position evaluation, so that people, instead of saying why they got this result, that would be the number one conversation, not just what the result was. And that is our presentation. I'll say thank you to everybody. It's been a great conference and a great competition. Oh yeah, and we're taking any questions, sorry.
Have you thought about something as simple as size of goalie for how far they have to come out to challenge a shot?
No. No. I mean, we could. There's, in the tracking data, one nice thing is that you have the Z position of the goalie, which you could probably infer whether or not he's standing up, or it would be helpful.
There was some things that we were kind of afraid of when it came to physical attributes, because we weren't sure if that'd be a chicken or the egg scenario, if your style was dictated by your size or vice versa. So there was some things that we were kind of it also was because of time constraint. We're let's go a little bit high level, but still trying to show that we can extrapolate it.
Did you notice if there was any variation by game for each goalie? If their style changed?
So I don't take that. So there was a change overall as the games went on, but one thing we weren't sure of was that just because the style was dictated by the flow of the series, if that was a team decision or if it was a personal decision. So that's where we were kind of afraid to look in more into that, as to what was dictating it.
Or if there's any difference, if they were ahead or behind, their aggressiveness changed.
That's something we should have looked more into on the depth change relative to the score in the game. So that's something we should be looking forward to going forward.
I think we're all good.
Thank you,
very much,
guys.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Krishan Takela. I'm a grad student at University of Calgary, and I'm currently working at a startup at Drive Hockey. So I'm going to talk about my hackathon project where I try to predict high-threat shooting opportunities from controlled zone entries. So here's the approach that I loosely followed throughout the hacking: planning and objectives, data exploration and prep, analysis and modeling, and evaluation. So these are some keys to effective offense that I believe in. Hockey is a possession-driven game. Controlled zone entries are better than dump-ins. Zone entries through the middle are better than along the perimeter. And scoring is greatest within the offensive zone interior. I'll touch on that next slide. So the big question: can we predict that a high-threat shooting opportunity will occur from a controlled zone entry? What do I mean by a high-threat shooting opportunity? A shot taken from the slot area outlined as a polygon from post to face-off dots up to the tops of the circles and across. To determine if a shot was taken within this polygon, I used the point-in polygon algorithm. So before I want to answer that big question, I want to tackle a few simpler ones. Can we predict a shot attempt from any location will occur off of a controlled zone entry? And can we predict that up to 5 seconds of controlled zone time will occur off a controlled zone entry? Decisions made due to the time constraints and the nature of the hackathon. The first decision only used two game data sets out of the 6 available ones. That's because I need the location tracking data, and each one was about like 1.5 million rows of data. Decision 2 chose not to evaluate performance off of zone entries based off a goal scored. So let's just quickly answer the question. Controlled zone entries are better than dump-ins. Just based off these bar plots here, we can see shot attempts and shot on goals it's just way more prominent in controlled zone entries versus dump-ins. And to hammer that point in, I just conducted 2 hypothesis tests with a level of significance of 0.01. And just so I can assert that with 99% confidence that controlled zone entries result in more possession time and shot attempts. So let's hone in on controlled zone entries only and dig deeper. Here we have 3 distributions for the 3 questions. So looking at the first one, instances with up to 5 seconds of controlled possession time after a controlled zone entry, we can see that successfully happened 93 times and failed 52 times. The next 2, shot attempt after 5 seconds after entry, and instances with a high threat shot and goal after zone entry. Much more imbalanced. We only have 18 high threat shots on goal after a controlled zone entry, which is a little bit worrisome for the modeling, but we pursue. Feature engineering. So I came up with 6 metrics, which I thought that might help me with predicting: average distance, distance boards, in zone, forecheck, carrier speed, carrier acceleration. So average distance is the average distance between the 2 closest defenders to the puck carrier before the zone entry. Distance to boards is the distance between the boards and the puck carrier before zone entry. In zone is just how many defenders are in the offensive zone that the puck carrier is attacking. Forecheck is how many players does the puck carrier have on the rush, up to 5 feet proximity of the blue line. Carrier speed, carrier acceleration are just the speed and acceleration of the puck carrier. Overall, we can see in this, on the right, we have the correlation matrix, but we can see there's no strong correlations, but highlighted in red, we have a bunch of weak correlations. So let's see if we can leverage those into a predictive model. These are the steps taken to build the logistic regression feature selection using the correlation matrix. I chose the relevant features for each model. Normalization, simple min-max method, normalize all the features. I split the training data into 80% and test data into the 20%. And I just use logistic regression just because it's very easy to implement in Python and it's quick. So model performance. First question, can we predict that up to 5 seconds controlled zone time will occur off a controlled zone entry? Results are not bad. It's definitely better than a coin flip. 93% of the time, the model can predict that event will occur off a controlled zone entry. Moving along, the second question, can we predict that a shot attempt will occur from any location off a controlled zone entry? Not really. The data just does not have enough events of a shot attempt from a controlled zone entry, and it's just biased towards it. Finally, the big question, high threat shooting opportunities from controlled zone entries. Similarly to the shot attempt one, this model suffers from bias in the data, but it's hopeful that the possession one worked out. Maybe if we had more events of high threat shooting opportunities within these games, it could have worked out. But I don't even think 6-game data sets would have cut it. Only 18 shots from 2 games after I controlled the zone entry. But of course, there's a model refinement. I could simulate more data. There's a lot of things that could have been produced out of this. Areas of future work and further questions. I really wanted to try to answer when are dump-ins actually tactically advantageous over carry-ins. And then finally, what percentage of goals are scored in the high threat area? All right, well, thank you. Please check out Drive Hockey. I'll take any questions.
Did you notice any events in that 5-second window outside of just the puck carrier taking the puck across the line and shooting?
So you're looking for any other events other than just a shot after the control event? No, no. So I was only strictly looking for shot attempts after that. And so there's 2 models, the shot attempts from anywhere, right, after controlled zone entry, and then shot attempts within that region I defined, right? Okay.
Did you mention, apologies, what strength you looked at? Did you look at power plays, even strength, all
Right,
of that?
so the event, the marker data, I'm pretty sure it just dumps everything in, so even strength, power play, and everything that. If I wanted to specifically look at power play, I would have to just filter on power play. I did not, but everything was included.
And
in
so
yep.
I think the next question, I think you mentioned it in one of your follow-up questions and
Yep.
something you'd like to look further. Did you happen to limit line changes if there was a line change going on during a dump-in?
Right, yeah, okay. So what's interesting where, like, if I had more time, I'd get into it. So that high threat shooting opportunity, usually to generate that type of play, it might take a lot of time, right? So I looked at the whole entire play sequence after the zone entry. So I'm looking at the puck leaving the zone or stoppage of play. Between them, there could have been a line change, but that team may have still had control of the puck, so it doesn't really matter if there was a line change or not. I'm still looking for that high threat shooting opportunity.
Choosing a feature, a forecheck was, I think, great. My question was, sometimes you're limited on your forecheck.
Yeah, no, I really thought that would work out, but unfortunately, it had 0 correlation with everything else. It's just the way sometimes it works out, right?
Thank you.
All right, thanks, guys.
That was an amazing 5 presentations. Let's give it another round of applause to all of our competitors here. So we're now going to take about 10 minutes to allow our judges to deliberate and decide on winners for the student and the open division. So if you'd all like to just take a 10-minute break and then stick around to hear who the winners will be, that'll be great. And then also another reminder, the winners will also be announced at the Alpha Awards. So some additional recognition at the end of the conference here. So thank you, everyone. Stick around. We'll have decisions in around 10 minutes.
All right. I think we have some decisions. Thank you for sticking around, everybody. So the way we're going to do this is like I said before, we have two divisions. We have student division and open division. We're going to start with the students. First of all, I'm going to invite all the judges up on stage. They're going to be the ones who actually give us the winner. So please join me here. Looks like we have some goodies here for the finalists. Very exciting. And we're going to start with the student division. So would all students please come up and join us on stage? I'm going to pass the mic off to the judge. Here's one of them.
All right, thank you very much. Just really want to say thank you. Appreciate the work you guys all did, actually for the last week and then definitely the last few days. It was really difficult decision, really impressed with the ideas, the creativity, and all of the effort. But unfortunately, we can only have one winner, and today the winner of the student division is Charlie Logan. No, that's a requirement.
Where do you want me?
In the middle.
Got it. Okay. And as our open folks walk up, also want to thank them just as the students for an excellent week of work. Two really good projects and presentations, so much appreciated. The winners of the open division are Daniel Lee and Fabrice Malemba. Congratulations.